The gunshot echoed through the coffee shop, and everyone froze except her. While customers screamed and the robber waved his weapon, the shy auburn-haired barista behind the counter did not run. She did not hide. Instead, her hands moved with surgical precision toward the bleeding customer on the floor. And in that moment, everyone realized she was not just a barista. Maya Torres had perfected the art of being invisible. For 3 years, she had worked at Sunrise Coffee House on the corner of 5th and Madison, and in all that time, she had barely made a ripple in anyone's memory. She was the auburn-haired girl who made your latte with a soft smile, handed you your change with trembling fingers, and apologized when she took too long with the foam art. The regulars knew her face, but not her name. The delivery drivers left packages at the counter without waiting for her signature. Even her co-workers, Jessica and Alex, treated her like a piece of furniture, pleasant enough, but ultimately forgettable. And that was exactly how Maya wanted it. Every morning at 5:45, she would unlock the cafe's front door, flip the sign to open, and begin her routine. Grind the beans, heat the machines, arrange the pastries in the display case. By 6:30, the first customers would trickle in. Construction workers grabbing black coffee, nurses finishing night shifts, college students cramming for exams. Maya served them all with the same gentle efficiency. She never made small talk unless someone initiated it first. She never complained about difficult customers. She never asked for raises or time off. She was by all accounts the perfect employee. So perfect she was practically invisible. But invisibility required constant maintenance. She kept her long auburn hair tied back in a loose bun, a few strands always escaping to frame her face. She wore minimal makeup, just enough to look presentable, never enough to draw attention. Her uniform was simple: black V-neck top that showed a hint of collarbone, the standard brown apron with the Sunrise Coffee logo, dark jeans, and comfortable sneakers. The only jewelry she wore was a set of dog tags tucked beneath her shirt, metal warm against her skin. She never took them off. Her left forearm bore a tattoo, usually covered by her long sleeves. Coordinates and a date. Nobody at the cafe had ever seen it. But here is what nobody knew about the shy barista making your morning coffee. 3 years ago, Maya Torres had a different context. Well, not different, but people used her full rank when they said it. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres, United States Army. She had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, and 6 months in an undisclosed location that still appeared as redacted text in her service records. She had saved 52 lives under fire. She had performed emergency surgeries in bombed-out buildings with nothing but a headlamp and a prayer. She had held dying soldiers' hands and whispered lies about how they would be okay, how help was coming, how their families would be proud. And then one day, she had decided she could not do it anymore. No dramatic breakdown, no Hollywood-style PTSD episode, just a quiet realization that if she saved one more life, she might lose whatever was left of her own soul. So she had finished her contract, declined re-enlistment, and disappeared into civilian life like a ghost. The Army had tried to convince her to stay. Her commanding officer, Colonel Harrison, had personally called her into his office. "Torres, you are one of the best medics I have ever seen. The teams request you specifically. You save lives." "I know, sir," she had replied, staring at a spot on the wall behind his head. "That is why I need to stop." He had looked at her for a long moment, then signed her discharge papers without another word. Now, she made lattes for $15 an hour plus tips, and nobody expected her to save anyone. October 23rd started like any other Tuesday. Maya arrived at 5:45, unlocked the door, and began her opening routine. The cafe smelled like coffee beans and yesterday's pastries. The espresso machine hummed to life with a familiar gurgle. By 7:30, the morning rush was in full swing. Maya moved behind the counter with practiced efficiency, her hands steady despite her shy demeanor. "Grande vanilla latte for Jessica," she called softly, sliding the cup across the pickup counter. "Thanks," the woman said without looking up from her phone. Maya returned to the register where an older man in a business suit was studying the menu with intense concentration. "Take your time," Maya said gently. Do you have oat milk? He asked. Yes, sir. Is it extra? 50 cents. He nodded, pulling out his wallet. Medium cappuccino with oat milk, please. And that is when everything changed. The door burst open with a force that made the bell above it scream rather than chime. A man in a black ski mask stormed in, one hand gripping a silver revolver, the other clutching a dirty canvas bag. Everybody down. This is a robbery. Nobody move, and nobody gets hurt. The cafe erupted into chaos. A woman near the window screamed. The businessman dropped his wallet. A college student dove under a table, knocking over her iced coffee. Maya's hands froze on the register, her breath catching in her throat. The robber was young. She could tell by his build, maybe mid-20s. Jittery movements suggesting this was not a professional job. His gun hand trembled. Bad sign. Nervous people made mistakes. Maya, the register. Now. He waved the gun toward Maya. She nodded slowly, her fingers moving toward the cash drawer. Training from another life whispered in the back of her mind. Comply. Assess. Survive. She could see 14 customers in the cafe. 2 exits. Front door and kitchen back entrance. 3 potential weapons behind the counter. Coffee pot. Steam wand. Knife from the pastry station. Faster, the robber shouted. Maya's hands shook as she pulled bills from the register, making herself seem terrified. It was not hard. Part of her genuinely was terrified, just not of him. She was terrified of what might happen, of what she might have to become if things went wrong. The businessman who had been ordering his cappuccino raised his hand slowly. Just take the money, man. Nobody wants trouble. Shut up. The robber swung the gun toward him. But what happened next? Nobody could have predicted. The businessman, perhaps thinking he was being heroic, perhaps just reacting on instinct, lunged forward to grab the gun. It was the worst possible decision. Maya saw it happening in slow motion. The businessman's hand reaching, the robber's finger twitching on the trigger. The physics of violence she had witnessed too many times before. Do not, she started to shout. The gunshot was deafening in the small cafe. The businessman crumpled to the floor, clutching his abdomen. Blood already seeping between his fingers, dark red, almost black. Internal bleeding, possibly liver or intestinal damage. The cafe erupted into screams. People ran for the door. The college student under the table was crying hysterically. The robber stood frozen, staring at the gun in his hand like he could not believe what just happened. Oh God, I did not mean. I did not. Maya's mind split into 2 tracks. Track 1, the scare barista. Run, hide, not your problem anymore. Track 2, the combat medic. Assess, stabilize, save the life. For 3 years, Track 1 had won every time. She had walked past car accidents without stopping. She had scrolled past news stories about casualties. She had buried that part of herself so deep she had almost convinced herself it was gone. But as the businessman's blood pooled on the cafe floor, as his breath came in wet, desperate gasps, as the robber stood there paralyzed with his fingers still on the trigger, Track 2 roared to life. Maya's hands stopped shaking. Her breath steadied. Her vision sharpened. The cafe chaos faded to background noise. She did not think. She did not plan. She just moved. I need a clean towel now. Her voice cut through the screaming like a blade. Not loud, not panicked, just absolutely certain. Maya vaulted over the counter, not clumsy, not hesitant, but smooth and practiced like she had done it 1,000 times. She hit the ground running, her sneakers squeaking on the tile floor as she dropped to her knees beside the businessman. Sir, can you hear me? Her fingers were already on his neck, checking his pulse. Thready fast. He was going into shock. I cannot. The businessman gasped. Do not talk. Save your breath. Maya pulled his hand away from the wound, assessing the damage. Entry wound left side, mid-abdomen. No exit wound. Bullet still inside. Blood flow steady, but not arterial. She had maybe 10 minutes before blood loss became critical. This was the moment everyone watching realized she was not who they thought she was. Maya's voice cracked like a whip toward the college student under the table. Stop crying and call 911. Tell them we have a GSW to the abdomen. Male approximately 50 years old. Conscious but going into shock. Location is Sunrise Coffee House, 5th and Madison. The girl scrambled for her phone, hands shaking but moving. Maya turned to a woman frozen by the pastry display. You, grab every clean towel from behind the counter. The woman did not move, staring in shock. Now, Maya barked, and the woman jumped into action. Then Maya looked up at the robber who still stood there with the gun hanging limp in his hand. His masked face turned toward the bleeding man on the floor. You, Maya said, her voice eerily calm. Put the gun on the counter and get over here. I need your hands. I did not mean to. I do not care what you meant. He is dying. Are you going to help, or just stand there? The robber's gun clattered onto the counter. He stumbled forward, pulling off his mask with shaking hands. He was younger than Maya had thought. Maybe 22 with acne scars and tear-stained cheeks. What do I do? He whispered. Apply pressure here. Maya guided his hands to the wound, pressing one of the towels against it. Do not let up. If you let up, he dies. The young man's face went white, but he pressed down. Maya's hands moved with mechanical precision. She checked the businessman's pupils, responsive but sluggish. She tore open his shirt to check for additional wounds. She felt his abdomen for rigidity. There, on the left side, hardening. Internal bleeding probably hit the spleen or kidney. Ambulance is coming, the college student shouted. They said 5 minutes. Maya had kept people alive longer with less. But this was not a field hospital with supplies. This was a coffee shop floor. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. The businessman's eyes found Maya's face. Who are you? Someone who has done this before. Maya ripped a clean apron into strips, creating makeshift pressure bandages. Conserve your energy. You are not just a barista. Today I am. She placed another towel over the wound, layering them. The bleeding was slowing. Good sign. Yesterday I was too. Tomorrow I probably will be again. Were you a nurse? Something like that. Another customer, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, knelt beside Maya. What can I do to help? Finally, someone asking the right question. Maya glanced at her. What is your name? Patricia. I need you to keep talking to him. Keep him conscious. Ask him questions. His name, his family, anything. Can you do that? Patricia nodded, leaning closer to the wounded man. What is your name, sir? David, he whispered. David Sullivan. That is a good, strong name, David. Do you have family? 2 daughters. Maya turned back to the robber, whose hands were soaked in blood. You are doing fine. Keep that pressure steady. I am sorry, the young man sobbed. I am so sorry. I lost my job. I have a kid. I did not know what else to do. Save it for the police, Maya said, but her tone was not harsh. Right now, you're keeping this man alive. That counts for something. She checked Sullivan's pulse again. Still thready but holding. His breathing was shallow but regular. The makeshift bandages were soaked through, but the bleeding had slowed significantly. He might actually make it. The cafe had gone quiet. The customers who had not fled stood in a loose circle, watching Maya work with something like awe. Her long auburn hair had come loose from its bun, falling across her face as she worked. Blood streaked her forearms and stained her black shirt. Her hands never stopped moving, checking, adjusting, monitoring. She looked nothing like the shy girl who had been making lattes 10 minutes ago. Jessica, Maya's co-worker, stood behind the counter with her phone out, recording. Maya, how do you know how to do this? Maya did not answer. She was listening to Sullivan's breathing, counting the seconds between each breath, calculating blood loss rates in her head. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Ambulance is here, someone shouted. The paramedics burst through the door with a stretcher and equipment bags. 2 men in dark blue uniforms, one older with gray hair, one younger with a buzz cut. They took in the scene in an instant. The blood, the wounded man, the young woman with bloody hands. The older paramedic knelt beside Maya. What do we have? Single GSW, left abdomen, no exit wound. Bullet entered approximately 3 inches left of midline, 2 inches below the ribs, possible splenic or renal involvement. I have controlled external bleeding with direct pressure. Patient is conscious but showing signs of shock. Thready pulse, shallow breathing, pallor. He has been down for approximately 7 minutes. The paramedic stared at her. I work here. That is not what I asked. Maya stood, stepping back to let them work. I used to be a 68 whiskey. The younger paramedic's eyes widened. Combat medic. She nodded. Where did you serve? Fallujah, Kandahar, a few other places. The older paramedic was already working on Sullivan, starting in 4-line. You probably saved his life. Good work, specialist. Staff sergeant. Maya corrected automatically, then caught herself. But that was a long time ago. The police arrived 3 minutes after the ambulance. 2 officers, 1 male and 1 female, both looking like they had seen too many crime scenes and not enough sleep. They separated everyone for statements. Witnesses in one corner, Maya and the young robber in another. Officer Bennett, a stocky woman with sharp eyes, studied Maya with obvious curiosity. You are Maya Torres, the employee who provided medical assistance. Yes, ma'am. Walk me through what happened. Maya recounted the events in clinical detail. The robber's entry, the customer's decision to fight, the gunshot, her medical intervention. She left out the part about her training. Bennett would figure it out soon enough. And you learned these medical skills. United States Army. I was a combat medic. Bennett's pen paused on her notepad. For how long? 8 years. 2 tours Afghanistan, 1 Iraq. Why did you leave? Maya met her eyes. Because I was tired of seeing people bleed. But the real question everyone wanted to ask was coming. The cafe had been cordoned off as a crime scene. Tex photographed the blood on the floor, collected evidence, dusted for fingerprints. The businessman, his name was David Sullivan, Maya learned, had been rushed to County General. The paramedics said he would probably make it thanks to her quick response. The young robber, who gave his name as Dylan Parker, sat in the back of a police car with his hands cuffed behind his back. Through the window, Maya could see him crying. Jessica approached Maya as she stood outside the cafe, still wearing her blood-stained apron. I had no idea. All this time you've been working here, and I never knew you were. We could have, I do not know, recognized it or something. I did not want recognition. Maya pulled the apron over her head, bunching it in her hands. I came here to get away from all that, from saving lives, from everything that came with it. Alex, the other co-worker, was talking excitedly to a local news reporter who had shown up. She was amazing. She just jumped over the counter and took control. I have never seen anything like it. Maya's stomach sank. This was exactly what she had been trying to avoid. Officer Bennett called her over. Miss Torres, we're going to need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. But off the record, she glanced at the cafe, at the blood still staining the floor. What you did in there was extraordinary. Most people would have frozen. You saved that man's life. I did what anyone with my training would do. Bennett shook her head. Most people with your training left that training behind when they took off the uniform. You did not. That says something. Maya did not respond. What could she say? That she had spent 3 years trying to leave that part of herself behind. That every day she successfully avoided using those skills felt like a victory. That today felt like a failure, even though she had saved a life. By that evening, Maya's life had become a viral sensation. Jessica's video, the one she had recorded on her phone, had been uploaded to social media. Within hours, it had millions of views. The footage was shaky but clear enough. It showed Maya vaulting the counter, her voice sharp and commanding as she took control of the scene. It showed her hands steady and precise, working on the wounded man. It showed the moment the robber, under her direction, went from shooter to helper. The comments were overwhelming. This woman is a hero. Former combat medic saves shooting victim. Respect. She has been making your coffee while knowing how to save your life. The way she stayed calm. Incredible. Local news picked up the story. National news followed. By Wednesday morning, Maya's face was on headlines across the country. Barista hero. Former combat medic saves customer during armed robbery. Maya watched the coverage from her small apartment, her phone buzzing constantly with messages from numbers she did not recognize. Interview requests, friend requests, people wanting to thank her, praise her, make her famous. She ignored all of it. Instead, she sat on her couch with a cup of tea, staring at the dog tags in her palm. She had taken them off for the first time in 3 years. The weight of them felt heavier now, like they carried all the lives she had touched, the ones she had saved and the ones she could not. A knock on her door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw Officer Bennett, now out of uniform and wearing casual clothes. Maya opened the door. "Officer Bennett, just Sarah is fine. I'm off duty." She held up a paper bag. "I brought coffee. Figured you might need it after yesterday." Maya let her in, and they sat at the small kitchen table. Sarah pulled out 2 cups from a chain coffee shop. Not as good as Sunrise coffee, but hot and caffeinated. "How are you holding up?" Sarah asked. "I'm fine. That is what everyone says when they're not fine." Maya sipped her coffee. "How is Mr. Sullivan?" "Surgery went well. Doctor said he will make a full recovery." Sarah studied her. "He wants to meet you, to thank you." "That is not necessary." "Maybe not, but he is pretty insistent." And then Sarah asked the question that cut straight through Maya's defenses. "Why did you really leave the army, Maya?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "I told you. I was tired of seeing people bleed." "That is true, but it is not the whole truth, is it?" Maya looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. The officer's gaze was kind but penetrating, like she had spent a career reading people's secrets. "There was a mission," Maya heard herself saying. "My last deployment. We were providing medical support for a special operations team in a village outside Fallujah." She had not talked about this in 3 years. Not to therapists at the VA, not to her family, not to anyone. But something about Sarah's steady presence, about the events of yesterday, made the words come. The compound was under attack. We had casualties, American and civilian. I was triaging, doing what I was trained to do, saving the ones I could save. Maya's hands were shaking now. There was a little girl, maybe 7 years old. Purple dress, blue bracelet on her wrist. She had been caught in the crossfire. Shrapnel wounds, internal bleeding. I worked on her for 20 minutes. Did everything right. Every procedure, every technique. Sarah reached across the table, placing her hand over Maya's. "But she died anyway." Maya's voice broke. "She died anyway. And I realized that no matter how good I was, no matter how hard I tried, sometimes it would not be enough. Sometimes I would lose. And I could not. I cannot keep doing that." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic outside. "I finished my contract," Maya continued. "Declined re-enlistment. Colonel Harrison tried to convince me to stay. Told me about all the soldiers I had saved, all the good I had done. But all I could see was that little girl's face. So I left. I found the quietest, most invisible job I could find. I thought if I could just make coffee and stay small and never use those skills again, maybe I could forget. But yesterday, you could not walk away." Maya nodded. "Yesterday, someone was bleeding right in front of me. And even though every part of me wanted to run, wanted to stay invisible, I could not let him die." Sarah nodded slowly. "And that is not weakness, Maya. That is being human. You cannot save everyone. No one can. But you saved David Sullivan yesterday. And from what I have read about your service record, you saved 52 others before him." Maya looked up sharply. "You looked into my record. I'm a cop. It is what I do." Sarah's expression softened. "Staff Sergeant Maya Torres. 8 years of service. 2 Bronze Stars. A Silver Star. 52 confirmed saves under fire. You were nominated for the Soldier's Medal twice. Colonel Harrison wrote in one of your evaluations that you were the finest combat medic he had ever commanded." Maya felt tears burning in her eyes. "That does not change what happened to that little girl." "No, it does not," Sarah agreed. "Nothing changes that. But it also does not erase the 52 soldiers who went home to their families because of you. It does not erase David Sullivan going home to his 2 daughters. You cannot let one loss define you when there are 53 victories standing right beside it." "But what if I fail again?" Maya whispered. "What if next time I'm not good enough?" "Then you will have tried," Sarah said simply. "And that will be more than most people ever do." They sat together for a while longer, drinking bad coffee and talking about everything and nothing. When Sarah finally left, Maya felt something shift inside her. Not healing, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The next few days passed in a blur. Media requests continued pouring in. Good Morning America wanted an interview. The local newspaper wanted a feature story. A publisher reached out about a book deal. Maya declined everything. She was not ready to be a public hero. She was barely ready to be a private one. But something she could not avoid. On Thursday, she went to County General Hospital to visit David Sullivan. His room was on the 4th floor, filled with flowers and get well cards. When Maya knocked softly on the door, a woman in her early 50s looked up. "You must be Maya," she said, standing immediately. "I am Linda, David's wife." She crossed the room and pulled Maya into a hug before Maya could protest. "Thank you. Thank you for saving my husband. I just did what anyone would do." Linda pulled back, holding Maya at arm's length. "No, you did what only someone with your training and courage could do. The police told us everything. How you took control, how you kept him alive until the paramedics arrived. Our daughters." She gestured to 2 young women standing near the hospital bed, both in their 20s. "They wanted to meet you too. This is Rachel and this is Sophie." Both daughters had tears in their eyes. "Thank you for giving us our dad back," Rachel said quietly. "We do not know what we would have done if—" Her voice trailed off. David Sullivan was awake, though pale and weak. He looked at Maya with an expression she recognized from 100 battlefields. The look of someone who had stared at death and been pulled back. "You are the angel from the coffee shop," he said, his voice hoarse. "Not an angel, just someone who was in the right place at the right time." "You are more than that," David said. "I remember your voice. So calm, so certain. I was terrified, but you made me believe I was going to be okay. You told me to conserve my energy, to stay with you. And I did." They talked for a few minutes more, though the doctors had limited David's visitor time. As Maya prepared to leave, Linda pressed something into her hand. "A card. Our family would like to stay in touch, if that is okay with you. You are part of our story now. Part of the reason we still have our husband and father." Maya looked down at the card, then at the family gathered around the hospital bed. For the first time in 3 years, she did not feel the crushing weight of failure. She felt something else, something that might have been purpose. Over the following weeks, Maya's life settled into a new rhythm. She returned to work at Sunrise Coffee House, but everything had changed. Customers who had never noticed her before now greeted her by name. Some thanked her for what she had done. Others simply nodded with respect. The invisible barista had become visible, and there was no going back. Jessica and Alex treated her differently too, not with the casual dismissal of before, but with genuine interest. They asked about her service, about her experiences, about what it had been like. Maya answered carefully, sharing what she could while keeping the hardest memories locked away. The media attention gradually faded. A week became 2, then 3. New stories replaced hers in the news cycle. Life moved on, as it always does. But some connections remained. David Sullivan came into the cafe every Tuesday morning for his oatmeal cappuccino. He always left a $20 tip, no matter how much Maya protested. His daughters, Rachel and Sophie, wrote her thank you cards that Maya pinned to her bathroom mirror. They were filled with drawings and heartfelt words about second chances and guardian angels. Dylan Parker, the young robber, was facing charges: assault with a deadly weapon, attempted robbery, reckless endangerment. His public defender reached out to Maya, asking if she would be willing to provide a statement for the sentencing hearing. Maya thought about it for a long time. She remembered Dylan's tear-stained face, his shaking hands as he helped apply pressure to the wound he had caused. She remembered him saying he had a kid, that he had lost his job, that he had not known what else to do. The system had failed him before he failed David Sullivan. She wrote a letter to the judge. In it, she described how Dylan had followed her instructions, how he had helped keep David alive, how in the worst moment of his life, he had chosen to help rather than flee. She acknowledged his crime, but asked for mercy, for a chance at rehabilitation rather than pure punishment. Her letter probably shaved a year or 2 off his sentence. Dylan was sentenced to 5 years with the possibility of parole in 3. It was not perfect justice, but it was something. Sarah Bennett became a regular at the Café too, stopping by every week for coffee and conversation. They talked about everything: work, family, the strange ways life brings people together. Sarah shared stories from her years on the force. Maya shared stories from her deployments, carefully edited versions that left out the worst parts. They were becoming friends, which surprised Maya. She had not allowed herself friends in 3 years. Friends meant connections, and connections meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant the possibility of loss. But Sarah was persistent in the best way, showing up week after week with her dry humor and genuine interest. Slowly, Maya's walls came down. One afternoon in late November, as Maya was closing up the cafe, she found an envelope taped to the front door. Her name was written on it in careful handwriting. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A letter. It began, Staff Sergeant Torres. Maya's heart started pounding before she even read the next line. She knew that form of address, knew what it meant. She carried the letter inside, locked the door behind her, and sat down at one of the small tables near the window. Her hands were shaking as she unfolded it completely. The letter was from Colonel Harrison, her former commanding officer, the man who had tried to convince her to stay, who had signed her discharge papers when she insisted on leaving. He had heard about the incident at the cafe. News traveled fast through military networks, and several people had reached out to tell him about his former medic's actions. He wrote that he was not surprised, that he had always known she could not truly leave behind who she was, that the best medics did not save lives because of training alone, but because of something deeper, a calling, a need, an inability to stand by when someone was in danger. Colonel Harrison wrote about the little girl. He knew about her. Of course he knew. He had been her commanding officer during that deployment. He had been there in the aftermath, had seen Maya's face when she emerged from the medical tent, had watched her mechanically clean her equipment with blood still under her fingernails. He wrote that he understood why she left, that watching a child die was different from watching a soldier die. Soldiers knew the risks, accepted them. Children were innocents, caught in wars they did not start and could not escape. Losing one broke something in even the strongest medics. But then he wrote something that made Maya's breath catch. You did not fail that little girl, Torres. You gave her 20 minutes of fighting chance in a situation where she had none. You gave her skilled hands and determined effort when she could have died alone and terrified. You gave her everything you had. Sometimes everything we have is not enough. That does not mean we failed. It means the world failed her. Not you. He continued, I have thought about you often over these past 3 years. Wondered if you found peace. Wondered if leaving truly helped or if you just traded one kind of pain for another. Now I have my answer. You cannot outrun who you are, Torres. You are a healer. It is not just what you do. It is who you are. The cafe incident proved that. When someone was dying in front of you, you did not hesitate. You did not run. You saved him, because that is what healers do. But here is what I want you to understand. You do not have to come back to the military to be who you are. There are other ways to serve, other ways to heal. Civilian paramedics, emergency room nurses, disaster relief teams, teaching other medics. You have skills that are needed everywhere, not just on battlefields. The question is not whether you will heal. The question is where and how you choose to do it. The letter ended with his contact information and an invitation. If you ever want to talk, my door is always open. You were one of the finest soldiers I ever had the privilege to command. But more importantly, you are one of the finest people I have ever known. Do not let one loss define a lifetime of saving. Respectfully, Colonel James Harrison, United States Army. Maya read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She thought about David Sullivan and his daughters. She thought about the 52 soldiers whose names she still remembered. She thought about the little girl with the blue bracelet. And she thought about herself, about who she was, who she had been, who she might still be. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. The cafe is reopening early tomorrow. Will you be there? Maya stared at the message for a long time. Then she looked at the dog tags lying on her table. Slowly, she picked them up and clasped them around her neck. Not hidden beneath her shirt this time, but visible. She texted back, I will be there. But she also opened her laptop and started researching paramedic certification programs in the Portland area. Requirements, course schedules, application deadlines. Maybe there was a middle ground. Maybe she could serve in a different way. Maybe saving lives did not have to mean going back to war zones. Maybe being a hero just meant being brave enough to use the skills you had, wherever you were, whenever you were needed. The Portland Community College Paramedic Science program had an application deadline in 2 weeks. The program was intensive. 12 months of classroom instruction and clinical rotations. It would be challenging, especially while working part-time at the cafe. But Maya had done harder things. She had kept soldiers alive and bombed out buildings with nothing but a headlamp and determination. She had performed emergency surgeries under fire. She had earned a Silver Star for actions under enemy contact. A paramedic program would be difficult, but it was not impossible. She began filling out the application. As she typed her military experience into the relevant work history section, she realized she was not running anymore. She was not hiding. She was choosing. Choosing to be who she was, but on her own terms. Choosing to heal, but in a way that did not require her to return to the places that had broken her. Choosing to save lives, but in her own community, in her own way. It felt like the first real choice she had made in 3 years. The following Tuesday, Maya was behind the counter at Sunrise Coffee House when David Sullivan walked in for his regular oat milk cappuccino. He moved slowly, still recovering, but his color was better. His smile was genuine. "Good morning, Maya." "Good morning, Mr. Sullivan. How are you feeling?" "Better, every day." He leaned against the counter. "The doctors say I am healing remarkably well. They attribute it to the immediate care I received at the scene." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "I'm glad you're doing well." David pulled out his wallet, but Maya shook her head. "Your money is not good here. You know that." He smiled, but when she turned to make his drink, he slipped a 20 into the tip jar anyway. He always did. As she steamed the oat milk, David said quietly, "My daughters wanted me to tell you something. They have started volunteering at the hospital. Both of them. Rachel is working with the patient advocacy program, and Sophie is training to become a candy striper. They said that what happened made them realize how fragile life is and how important it is to help others." Maya's hands paused on the espresso machine. "That is wonderful. They said you inspired them." David's voice was thick with emotion. "You inspired all of us. You showed us what it means to act when it matters most." Maya finished his cappuccino and handed it to him, unable to find words. David took the cup, then met her eyes. "I heard you're going back to school. Paramedic training. Word travels fast in a small community." He smiled. "I think that is perfect. The world needs more people like you, Maya. People who run toward danger instead of away from it." After he left, Maya stood at the counter for a long moment, feeling the weight of his words. She touched the dog tags at her neck, no longer hidden. The week passed quickly. Maya submitted her application to the paramedic program. She received an acceptance letter 10 days later, along with a note from the program director. "Your military experience and recent actions speak to exactly the kind of candidate we are looking for. We would be honored to have you in our program. Classes start in January." Maya told Jessica and Alex about her plans. They were supportive, helped her arrange a part-time schedule that would work around her classes. The cafe owner, a kind man named Thomas who had always treated Maya well, offered to be flexible with her hours. "You do what you need to do," he said. "This place will always have a spot for you." In early December, Maya attended Dylan Parker's sentencing hearing. She sat in the back of the courtroom, watching as the young man stood before the judge. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by orange prison scrubs and handcuffs. The judge read Maya's letter aloud. The courtroom was silent as he described Dylan's actions under Maya's direction, how he had helped save the life of the man he had shot. "It does not excuse what you did," the judge said, looking at Dylan, "but suggests you are capable of redemption. I am sentencing you to 5 years, with the possibility of parole in 3. Use that time to become the person you showed Ms. Torres you could be." Dylan looked back into the courtroom, found Maya's eyes. He mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Maya nodded once. She did not forgive him, not completely, but she believed in second chances. She had to. Otherwise, what was the point of saving anyone? Sarah Bennett met her outside the courthouse. They walked to a nearby coffee shop, not Sunrise Coffee, and sat by the window, watching December rain streak the glass. "You did a good thing in there," Sarah said, giving him a chance. I do not know if it was good, Maya replied, but it felt right. He helped save David's life, even if he was the one who endangered it. That has to count for something. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sarah asked, when do you start the paramedic program? January 15th. Nervous. Terrified, Maya admitted, but also excited. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I am moving forward instead of just hiding. Sarah raised her coffee cup. To moving forward. Maya clinked her cup against Sarah's. To moving forward. Christmas came and went. Maya spent it with her family for the first time in years. Her mother cried when she saw the dog tags visible around Maya's neck, no longer hidden. Her father, a Vietnam veteran himself, simply hugged her and said, welcome back. Not back to the military, but back to herself. On New Year's Eve, Maya stood on her apartment balcony watching fireworks explode over Portland. She thought about the past year, about the gunshot that changed everything, about David Sullivan bleeding on the cafe floor, about the choice she had made to act instead of hide, about the 52 soldiers whose names she still carried, about the little girl with the blue bracelet. She would always carry that loss. It would always hurt. But Colonel Harrison had been right. One loss did not erase 53 saves. It did not define her. It was part of her story, but it was not the whole story. She pulled out her phone and typed a message to Colonel Harrison. Thank you for your letter. You were right. I cannot outrun who I am, but I'm finding a way to be that person on my own terms. Starting paramedic training in 2 weeks. Thought you would want to know. His response came within minutes. Proud of you, Torres. Always have been. Always will be. The world is lucky to have you. January 15th arrived cold and clear. Maya walked into Portland Community College wearing her dog tags and carrying a backpack full of textbooks. The paramedic science building was modern, filled with training equipment and simulation labs. Her classmates were a mix of ages and backgrounds. Former EMTs looking to advance. Young students fresh out of high school. A few military veterans like herself. The program director, a woman named Dr. Chun, welcomed them on the first day. You are here because you want to save lives, she said. That is noble. But let me tell you what this job really is. It is showing up when everyone else is running away. It is staying calm when everything is chaos. It is doing your best, knowing that sometimes your best will not be enough. It is carrying the losses and celebrating the wins and showing up again the next day. Maya felt something settle in her chest. She was in the right place. The coursework was intense. Anatomy and physiology, pharmacology, advanced cardiac life support, trauma management. Maya absorbed it all, her military training giving her a foundation that many of her classmates lacked. But she was not arrogant about it. She helped others when they struggled. She shared her experience when it was relevant. She learned alongside them. In March, they started clinical rotations. Maya rode along with experienced paramedics, responding calls throughout Portland. Car accidents, heart attacks, overdoses, falls. Each call was different, but the fundamental truth was the same. Someone was in crisis, and they needed help. Maya found she was good at this. Not just technically skilled, but calm under pressure. Able to connect with patients, to reassure them, to make them feel safe even in their worst moments. Her supervisors noticed. One of them, a veteran paramedic named Rodriguez, pulled her aside after a particularly difficult call. You have a gift, Torres. I have been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell when someone has it. That natural ability to be exactly what a patient needs. You're going to be excellent at this. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Rodriguez smiled. We all need to hear it sometimes. This job is hard. It will break your heart regularly, but it will also give you moments of profound meaning. Moments where you know, absolutely know, that you made a difference. Hold on to those. In April, Maya responded to a call that tested everything she had learned. A construction accident. A worker had fallen 3 stories. Multiple injuries. Critical condition. When they arrived on scene, Maya saw the chaos. Co-workers panicking. Blood on the concrete. A young man, maybe 25, unconscious and barely breathing. For a split second, she was back in Fallujah. Back in that compound. Back with the little girl in the purple dress. Her hands started to shake. Then she heard Rodriguez's voice. "Torres, I need you." And just like that, she was present. Focused. She dropped to her knees beside the injured worker, her hands moving with practiced precision. Airway. Breathing. Circulation. Assess. Stabilize. Treat. They worked together, Maya and Rodriguez and their partner, a symphony of trained responses. They stabilized the worker, loaded him into the ambulance, and rushed him to the hospital. He survived. 3 weeks later, Maya received a card from his family. "Thank you for saving our son." Maya graduated from the paramedic program in December, 1 year after she had started. She stood on stage in her uniform, receiving her certification, and saw familiar faces in the audience. Sarah Bennett, clapping loudly. Jessica and Alex from the Café. David Sullivan and his wife Linda, both beaming. Rachel and Sophie, holding a banner that said, "Congratulations, Maya." And in the back, standing quietly, Colonel Harrison. He had flown in from North Carolina to see her graduate. After the ceremony, he approached her. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he said with a smile. "Or should I say Paramedic Torres now?" "Just Maya is fine, sir." He shook his head. "You will always be Torres to me." He looked at her dog tags, visible around her neck. "I am proud of you. Not because you are back in service, but because you found a way to serve that works for you. That takes courage." They talked for a few minutes about her plans. She had already accepted a position with Portland Fire and Rescue. She would start in January. She was nervous but ready. Before Colonel Harrison left, he said one more thing. "That little girl in Fallujah. I think about her sometimes too. I think about all the ones we could not save. But then I remember all the ones we did save. All the ones still alive, because we were there. You cannot change the past, Torres. But you can honor it by continuing to show up. Continuing to try. And that is exactly what you're doing." Maya watched him walk away, feeling something she had not felt in 4 years. Peace. Not complete peace. The nightmares still came sometimes. The little girl's face still appeared in quiet moments. But alongside that pain was purpose. Alongside the loss were the wins. 52 soldiers. David Sullivan, the construction worker. Countless others to come. Sunrise Coffee House looked different now. Maya still worked there, but only a few shifts a week. Just enough to stay connected to the place where everything had changed. When she was behind the counter, she wore her dog tags openly. Customers knew her story. Some thanked her. Some just nodded with respect. David Sullivan still came in every Tuesday for his oat milk cappuccino. Still left a $20 tip despite Maya's protests. His daughters visited sometimes, telling her about their volunteer work at the hospital. Dylan Parker was still in prison, but Maya had received a letter from him. He was taking college courses, working toward a degree. He thanked her again for giving him a chance at redemption. He said he thought about her every day, about how she had turned him from a man who caused harm into someone who helped save a life. He wanted to be that person when he got out. Sarah Bennett remained one of Maya's closest friends. They still met for coffee every week, talking about their jobs, their lives, the strange ways the universe brings people together. On a Tuesday evening in late December, Maya sat alone in Sunrise Coffee House after closing. The cafe was quiet, just her and the espresso machine and her thoughts. She pulled out her phone and looked at a photo she kept saved. The little girl from Fallujah. Purple dress, blue bracelet, bright eyes that had gone dark despite Maya's best efforts. "I'm sorry I cannot save you," Maya whispered, "but I promise I will keep trying to save others. In your memory. In memory of everyone I cannot help. I will keep showing up." The dog tags felt warm against her chest. Not a burden anymore. Not a reminder of failure. Just a symbol of who she was. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres. Combat medic. Healer. Someone who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. Someone who could not stop being who she was, no matter how hard she tried. And finally, she did not want to. She thought about her first shift with Portland Fire and Rescue, starting in 2 weeks. Thought about the calls she would respond to, the lives she would touch, the wins and losses that awaited. She was ready, not because the pain was gone, but because she had learned to carry it alongside the purpose. The gunshots still echoed in her memory. The blood still stained her dreams. But it no longer defined her, because Maya Torres had learned something important. You cannot outrun who you are. You can only decide what to do with it. And she had decided to save lives. One emergency at a time. One patient at a time. One moment at a time. She stood, turned off the lights, and locked the door behind her. Tomorrow she would be back, making coffee and serving customers. But she would also be a paramedic in training. A healer finding her way. A woman who had stopped running from her past and started building her future. The autumn air was cold as she walked to her car. She touched her dog tags one more time, feeling their familiar weight. Then she drove home through the Portland night, ready for whatever came next. Ready to save lives. Ready to fail sometimes and succeed others. Ready to be exactly who she was meant to be. Maya Torres. Combat medic. Barista. Paramedic. Hero. Human.